Hello there, and welcome to the third part of this Franklin Library Lot series. I know that I already finished cleaning all of the books, and as you can see, they are all very nice looking now. But one thing that I forgot to do, that I need to do for all of these books, is to catalog all of them. That means I have to go in and get the year from the publishing information. I have to type up the titles of each book with that year, and then I have to do an eBay search for the price, and that is how I will be sort of indexing all of the books that I got. As I go over them, I may give them a quick one pass with the brush, just in case there's any excess dust, but I don't think that I'll be needing that because they are all pretty dust free by now. So all I'll be doing is using my trusty keyboard here and my mouse, and I will be taking out each book, flipping through a few pages to get that publishing year, of course, and you'll be able to get a little bit of a look at the inside of each book. And then I will be searching them up, and I'll read out some information I find out as we go. So I'm going to start off with this first book, which is The Scarlet Letter. Now I know that I said that the second part would be the final part, but I forgot that I had to do this, and I think that it would make a nice video to watch. So starting off, we have The Scarlet Letter. I also have to type up a little sort of description about each. So this is a leather-bound edition of The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne, published by the Franklin Library in 1978, I believe was the year. Yep, 1978. And in fact, I should make a little what was I going to say? A little template for that, because all of these are going to be leather-bound editions published by the Franklin Library. So this is a leather-bound edition of, and then I'll just have a blank there, by blank, published by the Franklin Library in some year. And I'll just copy that, and I will fill up the entire list with it. Perfect. And then what I'll do is put the title down in the column next to that on this little spreadsheet I have, so Scarlet Letter, and then of course I will find a little eBay price to attach. And this will let me know how much all of these books are roughly worth, even though I won't be selling all of them. I did just get an eBay offer, so let me pause and manage that real quickly. Sorry about that. I got that offer squared away. So we have the Scarlet Letter here. So Franklin Library, Scarlet Letter. And once again, I have the noise gate and noise suppression on my microphone turned off, so you should be able to hear all of the relaxing sounds coming from the different things I'm doing, which will mostly be typing on the keyboard. It appears that this is worth close to, I'm going to say $30. One did sell for $36, and one sold for less than that on bid. But I will not be auctioning these off, so bids are mostly irrelevant. Does seem like 30 is roughly what this book is worth. So that's all for the Scarlet Letter. Next, we have the Essays of Ralph Waldo Emerson. This is a leather-bound edition of the Essays of Ralph Waldo Emerson, published by the Franklin Library in 1981. Perfect. And now we go to eBay and we look up Ralph Waldo Emerson. Maybe we'll move the keyboard up a little bit. Appears that this book, here we go, I see $30. Let me look at the completed listings here. Okay, it seems like it is close to 25. So that's what I'll say. Perfect. Once you get going, it doesn't take too long. Next, we have The Sound and the Fury by William Faulkner. Beautiful condition. And this is 1976. And then you have to edit it. This is a leather-bound edition of The Sound and the Fury by William Faulkner. Now we go to eBay, Franklin Library, Sound and the Fury. I've heard about this book, and I guess I should give a little bit of information, whatever I know, about each book as I go. So the Scarlet Letter is a book about the Puritans who settled in Massachusetts in the 1700s, and it's about this sort of, it's not the same book, it's sort of about this woman who is an adulterer, so she gets a scarlet letter A written on her, and the story sort of follows her and the misfortune that she experiences as the story goes, and how she sort of reacts to the society that has ostracized her. The next book was the Essays of Ralph Waldo Emerson, and I believe that he was sort of a not a naturalist, that's the wrong word to use. By the way, this book is about $25. He was not a naturalist, an environmentalist, and I don't know much else about that, but I believe that book is something to do with nature and stuff like that. This book, The Sound and the Fury by William Faulkner, I know is about the decline of the South after the Civil War and Reconstruction. I believe it's about sort of the fall of the decline of a family that was prominent in the South during the time of slavery. They were a plantation-owning family, But of course, after the Civil War, they lost that, and the book sort of follows their decline and downfall. This is Tom Jones by Henry Fielding. I don't know anything about this book, although I read a little, I don't know if it was a commentary or an excerpt. Tom Jones. But this book is supposed to be very funny and comedic. Tom Jones by Henry Fielding. And this book was published in 1979. Ooh, this one, the cigarette smell is a little worse on this one than it is on the others. Maybe it's because it's a bigger book. 1979. I will be listing quite a lot of these books. So if you are interested in any of them, they will be selling. Let's see. This one appears to not sell very often at all, but I do see one for $25. I see one for $16 that sold, but then one for $40. I'll say $20 for this particular book. The next volume is the Oresteia, I'm not sure how to say it, by Aeschylus. How do you... Oresteia. This is a leather-bound edition of the Oresteia by Aeschylus. Oh, there was a bug. Published by the Franklin Library in 1980. Perfect. Now we go to eBay, Franklin Library, Oresteia. Am I spelling that right? Yes, I am. Oh, $35, $26, $30, $20. I will say, I'll say $30. I think sometimes if you aren't sure about the price, you go to the current listings and see which one is the lowest. So there's one for $26. There's actually one for $20. Then I'm probably getting closer to $25, even though others have sold maybe even $20, which is what I'll put. Perfect. The next one, and I don't know what that one is about, by the way. I believe that it is an ancient Greek play, though. This next one is Candide by Voltaire. A very lovely looking volume. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. I don't know if it's Candide or Candide, but I do know quite a bit about this book because I've read through about a quarter of it. No, not a quarter, more like a tenth, just a little bit. And this is Candide or Optimism. Is also, I don't know if Candide means optimism in French, but the title, full title is Candide or Optimism, 1978. And this book is basically about being optimistic. So it's about the adventures of a man named Candide, and it's sort of about his misfortunes, but he remains optimistic throughout them. And it's a very fun little book. It's a very nice size. Wow, there has Okay, there's one copy listed for 17, but it is not, seems about 20 for this volume. Okay, this one is 15. Let me see if it is damaged. It has an inscription in front, which does hurt the price. But I don't think that that should be too much of a hurt to the price. So let me check the completed listings. Ooh, down to 12. And I don't see any other exact editions. It looks like Franklin Library actually released like 3 or 4 full leather-bound editions of Candide, which is unusual. Usually they only have 1, but then they have the quarter-bound and non-quarter-bound editions. I'll say 15 for this one. Now, one thing to note is that I paid $250 for this lot of 59 books. Currently, we are at 135, and we are 6 books in. The next book is Aristophanes' 5 Comedies. Yet again, I don't know too much about these Greek plays. I'm pretty sure that's what it means by comedies. Yes, plays, Greek plays. This was published in 1982. Five Comedies by Aristophanes. Perfect. $1982. I thought I already typed that. And none of these really needed any dust. They were all well dusted in the first 2 parts. So this is Aristophanes, and then here we go. Wow, one sold for $45, but then one sold for only $30. But it does seem like 30 is the going rate, which is unusually high. Wow, this is a particularly expensive volume. So I'll say 30. Quite nice. Oh, now I am going to stand these up so that they don't get damaged from laying on their sides. So I do need a larger volume to use as the bookend. I believe that this one is perfect. So next, we'll do War and Peace and see how much this is worth. So this is Leo Tolstoy's War and Peace, his magnum opus. And this one is worth some big bucks compared to the others. So this was published in 1981. It does have quite a bit of cigarette smell, but that is temporary, can be removed. A huge volume. 1981. Whoops. War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. And let's see how much this one is worth. So there are a lot of volumes that are more of those multi-volume sets. Seems like 60 is the lowest it's listed for. Wow, one sold for 17. I know it is absolutely not worth that little unless it's oh, yeah, and it was severely damaged. Yeah, that's not good looking. But it seems like, yeah, 60, 75 actually. And it sold for 51 on bid, which is quite high for a bid. So I will check out these ones that are 60 and see if they are good condition ones. And they are. That seems to be near perfect condition. So I'll say $60 for this book. And then I will use this as the bookend in order to stand these books up. So give me a few moments. There we go. Now they won't fall over. Next we have Faust, and this is quite a nice cover. I like how it's actually unique to this volume. Might be able to use a little bit of perfect. So this is Faust by what's his Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, right? Yeah. 1979. Faust by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. Perfect. Faust. And I believe that this one is a very decent amount of money, especially for being such a small volume. I see one listed here for 40, 45. I would be surprised. 40 again. I would be surprised if it was actually worth that much. But I do see selling for 40, selling for 40, selling for 35. So I guess 40 is accurate. That's quite a good price. And once again, that design is wonderful. Next up is Pierre Go. It's by Balzac. This book was published. I should be saying this edition because the book itself was not published in 1977. I'm going to say Pierre Goriot. Go Riot. Obviously, it's not that. By Honor de Balzac. I imagine that this one is not worth too much. Oh, and I have forgotten to comment on the previous books. I know that Faust is it's a play actually. It's one of the few plays that I want to read. And it is about a doctor who discovers how to cheat death. Seems about 20. The This one is on the lower end, but not a... Oh, that sold for 7. That one sold for 20 though, 22. I'll say 20. So, Faust is about the doctor who finds out how to cheat death, and he gets involved with the devil and all sorts of things of that nature. I'm not too sure about it, but outside of that. This next one is Bacon Selected Writings. And about the previous books, I know nothing about Pierre Goriot. I know... and War and Peace, of course, takes place in the late 1700s, early 1800s. But I don't really know much about it besides that. I believe it's just a sort of about the affairs going on in Russia and with a certain Russian family at the time. I'm not too sure, though. So, and this next one is Francis Bacon's Selected Political Writings, which I know absolutely nothing about. Here we go. 1626, so I believe... Ooh, maybe he was not the... That seems too early for the Enlightenment. Yeah, I think that the Enlightenment was in the early 1700s and late 1600s, so I don't think that this was Enlightenment era stuff, like Thomas Paine and what's his name? John Locke, Thomas Paine, and the guy that was Hobbes as well. So, anyways, what year was this published? 1982. Francis Bacon's Selected Writings. So, Bacon. Yeah, looks like 15, another 15, somehow one sold for 40, which I don't ever get the listings that sell for that much, but then 25, so I'm not too sure if I see any that are 20, 15. Sorry about that yawn. If this is damaged at all, then I'll say 20, but no, it is in perfect condition, so I will say 15. That's the lowest book so far, I believe. Never mind. Candide was also 15. Beautiful. Next is Fathers and Sons by Ivan Turgenev. This was published in 1981. As you know, my video descriptions are all quite generic. They're just enough to allow people to... just enough words to help people find the specific book if they ever happen to look it up. So I include the year and the name of the book and the publisher and the fact that it is a leather-bound edition. So this is a leather-bound edition of Fathers and Sons by Ivan Turgenev, published by the Franklin Library, and it deleted the year I wrote down for some reason, 1981. Fathers and Sons. Franklin Library, Fathers and Sons. Perfect. doesn't seem to be too much. Holy cow, there are a lot of listings though. Oh, well, the ones that aren't too much, the standard hardcover of this edition is bound in a very similar design, but is not leather. The actual leather one, only one copy of the actual leather one has sold in the time frame that I can see for 17. So 17, I see one listed for 23. So I would say about 20 is fair. And I don't know anything about this either. I just know that it's some sort of Russian literature. This one has a small blemish. There we go, it's gone. This is Plato's The Republic. Uh-oh, there might be some page damage in here. There's a big spread in the top of the book. Huh. No damage though. It just has a very strange separation in the binding there. Very odd. This one is in nice condition. This is Plato's Republic, I forgot to mention. I already have this exact edition, so I'll certainly be selling this one. 1975. 1975. The Republic by Plato. And I think that this one is pretty good. I'll have to read this one. It's a philosophical work, I believe. I'm not too sure about the exact content, but of course Plato is a very famous Greek philosopher, so it's about Greek philosophy and things like that. One sold for, wow, 36, holy crap, $50. Some have sold for down to 35. I will say, yeah, best offer accepted. I'll say 35. That should be a fair price. And I am interested in reading that one. This is Aristotle's Politics. This is a very nice edition. Needs a bit of dusting on the top there. Good condition. $1977. Ooh, speaking of dusting, I need to unplug my keyboard and give this a good dust. Perfect. Sorry about that. It might have been a bit a little aggressive, but it needed a good dusting after I dusted the books off yesterday because the dust just settled all over the stuff on my desk. There was so much of that musty dust caked into the books. Anyways, this is Aristotle's Politics, published by the Franklin Library in 1977. and I don't know anything about this. Of course, it's obviously something about politics, but what it is exactly, I don't know. Aristotle. This book, $35. That is a good price if that's consistent. $30, $40. So, yeah, I mean, 35, well, 40 actually. 35, I'll say 35 then. Perfect. That's a good price. Next one of my favorites, actually the single most valuable and my favorite book that I got from this collection that I bought. This is the Divine Comedy. Now this one is odd. It has a bit of swell. I don't know if you can notice. As you can see, the middle of the boards have come out more than the edges. And I'm not too sure what causes that swell. And the boards are actually kind of concave, if that makes sense. They are pushed out more in the middle, and they're bent downwards on the edges. I'm not sure what causes that swell. Is it something with the text block or what? But it's very strange, so I'm not too sure what causes it. But this is an incredible edition of the Divine Comedy. It has the best translation of the text, John Ciardi, in my opinion, and it has the Gustave Doré illustrations, which are easily the best. Most people would agree, and they are printed in very high quality. Of course, bound in this beautiful deep red leather that matches the book so well. It is an amazing volume. And I know for a fact that this book is worth close to $100. Except I will go for an exact price. It might be more like $80. It's still the most expensive in this lot, I do believe. 1977. And this is the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri. And this book is worth I see a few lower ones, a few higher ones, but I think I'll go conservative and I'll put 80 instead of 100, because I do see a few at 100, but I also see a few closer to the 70s. So I think I could sell it for 100, but I'll say 80. So that's a good price for that one. And I am going to stop here for tonight, but all I'm going to do is pause the video and carry on tomorrow. Alright, it is the next day and I'm ready to carry on. So the next book here is Geoffrey Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. A huge book. Can't even fit it all on frame. This is 1974. 74. The Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer. I believe that's how you say it. Geoff. Forgot a little E in his name. Perfect. And we'll see how much this one is. This is a collection of I believe this was in the 1300s. I have read quite a few of these. And it is a collection of sort of little, I wouldn't say folk tales. I believe that they were all tales created by Chaucer himself. And they are sort of like moral tales. So they all have a bit of a lesson in them, if that makes sense. I'm going to say it seems as though you can get about 40 for it. Might be a good value. Perfect. It's got these nice orange end papers. And it's, as you can see, I don't like how the entire text, or how a lot of the text is italicized, but most of it is. It does smell nice though. It doesn't smell like as much of cigarette smoke like some of the other ones do. I'll give this a bit of a brush by those headbands. But most of these are clean by now. This next one here is the Decameron by Giovanni Boccaccio. I don't know how to say it. And I believe that this is also a collection of short stories. Published. Ooh, nice gray end papers with a little bit of sun fading. 1979. So the first day, yeah, so it's a collection of stories. I don't know much about it besides that, though. Contained 100 stories told in 10 days by 7 young ladies and 3 young men. Okay. 1979, this one. These are all much tighter together in years than I expected. Like, they're all very close together in the years that they were released. I will talk a little bit about the Folio Society as I go. But, let me, 35, 26, 30. So I would say that 30 is quite a good number to settle at for this one. Oh, but I see a few that are only 20, but then again 30. I will check what the current listings are, and that should tell me. But anyways, I will talk a little bit about what I do know about the Franklin Library. Of course, I will make a separate video specifically on that. This one is quite scarce. Doesn't make it valuable, but I'll say closer to 25. Yeah. So the Franklin Library was started as what is similar to the Easton Press. They would release these leather-bound books, and they are in very similar quality to that of Ulysses next, James Joyce. They are in a very similar quality to the Easton Press, and they're actually, I would say that they are better, the early ones. And they started out as these full leather-bound books, of course. And I believe that they also had a cheaper quarter-bound series, which are quarter-bound in leather, and then I think that it's a cloth front. It might be buckram or paper, but it's one of those three materials. Not that that narrows it down much. And this Ulysses is 1976. So it seems like they had this, I butchered that. They have this 100 Greatest Books series, which is what all of the books here today are from, except maybe one or two. And these books were all leather bound, of course, and that was the first series they released, was the 100 Greatest Books. And I believe they also had a few extra little series that were bound in leather, but they were like offshoots. So actually, see, like this Charles Darwin Origin of Species is, I don't think it's the 100 Greatest Books, but I may actually be wrong. Oh, this is 1975, so this is actually earlier than most of these other books. Okay, no, this is the 100 Greatest Books of All Time. It uses a very weird leather, though, so I wasn't sure. And this one, which I don't think is leather, it's very weird, unless it's some super weird suede. This is also the 100 Greatest Books of All Time. So all of these books today, then, are in the 100 Greatest Books series. 1976, bound in Switzerland. Interesting. I'm not too sure why those two books are so weird compared to the others. Like, this is very clearly leather. But these 100 Greatest Books are the most, I wouldn't say the most common, but they're sort of it's the best selection of titles, and they're going to be the most well-known Franklin Library books, like what you would think of when you think of the Franklin Library. This one is about 40, I'll say. Now, oh, needs a bit of a brush. So, next is Six Tragedies by Jean Racine. I don't know if that's how it's said, but this one does have a bit of paint along the bottom, which is unfortunate, which I don't think will come off. No. Anyways, after that series, actually, what? Ooh. That's not mold, is it? I hope not. I did not notice that the first time. I'm assuming it's paint because a few of the other volumes have paint on the bottom as well. Anyways, so they have the Six Tragedies series. Or, oh my goodness, the 100 Greatest Books series. After that, they have, they started to go down in quality, I believe. So they turned their quarter-bound series. They used the same text blocks, 1982. They used the same text blocks, and they began making hardcover books that are not bound in leather. I think they might even be glued bindings, but they are much worse, at the very least, in terms of quality. And they were sort of towards the end of the Franklin Library's lifespan, because the Franklin Library did go out of business. Yeah, this is a cheap one anyways, so it's not too much of a tragedy that it's kind of damaged on the bottom. I am setting this one aside for further cleaning though. I might just sand the bottom part, and having damage to the leather is better than that stuff that I don't know what it is, but I believe it's just paint and dust. Next is this book, this book feels very nice in the hands. Amazing leather. Euripides Plays. This is 1976. But eventually, the Franklin Library went out of business. Unlike the Easton Press, which is still around today, of course. So, maybe $30 for this one? No, this is closer to 20. Oh no. I mean, for a good condition copy, 30 might be pretty feasible. I'll say 25. So the Franklin Library, they went out of business because they didn't really adapt. And near the end of their life, they were selling much worse quality books than these ones, which these are towards the beginning of the Franklin Library. By the way, the Franklin Library, Franklin, is in northern Pennsylvania, up by Erie, and the Franklin Mint is the company that owned it. And the Franklin Mint is a very big mint that makes like coins and stuff, I believe, like stuff to do with precious metals and all of that. Give me a moment. Sorry for the pause there. I had an eBay thing to resolve, a message from somebody. And this Euripides is... Oh, this is not Euripides. This is Vanity Fair. Sorry, the Euripides book is the same color and about the same size. This is Vanity Fair by William Makepeace Thackeray. And this was published in 1977. So, the content of the Franklin Library hardbacks, and actually I'll grab one just to show anybody who may be interested in. This is what these hardbacks look like. They are, and I have a lot of videos already posted of these. They are a much lower quality. They just have these cheap printed end papers. It's just paperboard with a stamped on leather grain. The gilt is simply, it's not sort of deep in the leather like this. It's just printed on there, so it rubs off quite easily. The insides are, I mean, the paper's not as good, but the content itself is roughly the same for these books, so no issues there. But you can usually get those for much cheaper, closer to $10. And you do have to how do you say this guy's name? There we go. Vanity Fair. Oops. Vanity Fair. You have to be careful when you're looking on eBay for those books because they are a much lower quality, and some people, I don't really think it's ever done out of malice. People will list them saying that they are the leather-bound editions because they don't know. They just look up Franklin Library and they see that, oh, the Franklin Library makes leather-bound books, and they think, oh, this looks like leather, so this is one of those leather-bound books, and they list them for quite a high price whenever it is a much worse book that is worth maybe like $10 is the most I would pay for one. Now there are a few that people really very few, like single digits at most, maybe like 3 of them that are worth more than $10 because they are books that people very much do want. And one of those is one that I have, and it is the hardcover Divine Comedy. Next book here, love this edition, Flowers of Evil by Charles Baudelaire. But anyways, you got to be careful when you are looking for them because they are not as good. And there are good ones though. If you see the Divine Comedy for less than $20, even at $20, I would pick it up if it's a good condition one, because they can go for $30 to $40. And that's because the translation that the Franklin Library uses is by John Ciardi, which is considered the best translation by a good margin, usually. And surprisingly, Franklin Library is the only sort of nice book publisher that makes the Divine Comedy with the John Ciardi translation. That has made. Of course, they're no longer around. So the hardcovers for the Franklin Library, why would you get a Wuthering Heights from the Franklin Library in hardcover when you can just get the leather one or get the Easton Press leather one, right? But the Divine Comedy is unique because the Franklin Library hardcover is objectively better than the Easton Press one if you actually plan on reading it, because it does come with the John Ciardi translation and the Gustave Doré illustrations, which are also the best, in my opinion. But they're the most famous, most renowned illustrations for the Divine Comedy. He was an absolute master of engraving and stuff. So The Flowers of Evil was about $20. This next one here is Tristram Shandy by Lawrence Stern. Tristram Shandy by published by them in, I'm going to say 79. That's my guess. Dang, 80. 1 year off. Yeah, most of these books were very close together. And this is Tristram Shandy. Let's see how much this one is worth. But if you can get the leather editions of the Franklin Library, they are, I would say, objectively better than the Easton Press books that are modern. Well, they're definitely better than the modern Eastern Press books. And the older Easton Press books are better than the modern Easton Press books. And I would say that they are mostly equivalent in terms of quality to the Franklin Library books. But some people have the opinion that the Franklin Library books use an even better quality of leather in their books. So some people do like the Franklin Library ones even more. This Tristram Shandy, I would say, yeah, 20. Wow, this one is actually 15. Oops, not 105. 15. There we go. Next book, Moll Flanders by Daniel Defoe, and it has some discoloration on there. Overall, it's still nice, and that leather feels very nice. This is one of the first, I believe it was actually the first modern novel. Oh, the paper in this one is, that is some nice paper. 1978. Actually, it's not, I can see the backside, the ink on the back through the paper, so maybe it actually is worse paper. Huh. That is odd. Yeah, maybe it's actually not as good of paper. It just feels nice, I guess. It has an air of luxury, even though it may not be better. What a nice front page. 1978. Moll Flanders. And now we look up the book, and remember that has a little bit of discoloration on the front there. 2015, but that's bid. 2020. Okay, very consistently a $20 book, so I'll say 15 because of that blemish on the cover. This next one is, I don't know how to say his name, but I'll say Thucydides. I'm gonna look this up. Pronunciation is the most looked. Thucydides. Okay, Thucydides. Perfect. Thucydides, the Peloponnesian War. So let's see what year this is. 1980. Is this the greatest books, or is this some sort of history series that they published? This is the 100 greatest books as well. Huh. That's interesting. I already forgot the year because I was concerned with the series. My goodness, there's a lot of title pages. Come on. There we go. 1980. The Peloponnesian War by Thucydides. Perfect. And I will just copy that. Franklin Library, the Peloponnesian War. Interesting. For some reason, this one is significantly more expensive than I would have thought. I see 78 or 75, 60, 45. Wow. And then a 40. If I look at the current listings, that should tell me how much it's. So it looks like I could easily get about 45 to 50 out of this. So I'll say 45. That is surprising. This next book here is Petronius the Satyricon. This is an interesting little volume. I believe that this is some sort of play. No, it is not a play. Maybe it is... What is this? I'm not too sure what this is. I haven't known what the last bit of books have been about. I know there are certainly more that I do know what they are. Satyricon. Satyricon. This was published in 1980. The Satyricon by Petronius, published by the Franklin Library in 1980. This one is going for, looks like $20 is what I'll be getting out of it. Yeah, $20. Consistently $20. Perfect. Next is Eugene O'Neill's Plays. The Plays of Eugene O'Neill, published by the Franklin Library in 4 plays by him, 1978. Eugene O'Neill. 15, yeah, this is not very desirable. Yeah, 15 is a solid estimate of what I would get out of this one. And Thomas Mann's Stories. (1977). I know that the order that I'm doing these in is very sporadic. Sometimes I'll put the year in first, sometimes I'll look up the price first. You know, it's all over the place. $30, $15. Ooh, it doesn't sell often at all. I'm gonna say 15. This is not a desirable volume. Yeah, 15. Yep. And actually, I think I will cut this video here, and I will do the rest for a second part, so that it is not so long, because it is already over an hour and 10 minutes, I believe. I see that this segment has gone on for 30 minutes, and I know the first one was like 45, maybe 50, so I'll cut it here, and we will catalog the other half of these videos in the next day. Thank you very much.